Hey everyone, Ben here, and in this video you're going to learn some key tips to improve your racecraft and minimise the mistakes you make using real live examples from this race at Suzuka in the GT3 class. It's a new kind of video on the channel, so if you enjoy it, be sure to leave a like and let me know in the comments. And if you don't enjoy it, well, let me know that too. Right then, we're getting ready to get underway here then at Suzuka, waiting for the green lights, and there we go, we get a decent start versus the cars behind me at least, and that means I'm able to tuck onto the racing line starting here in P9 of a grid of 18 in a strength of field of 1.8k, so it's going to be pretty competitive, and there were not many gaps between the cars in qualifying. Very tightly competitive field, so it's all going to be about minimizing the amount of mistakes that I make today, maximizing any opportunities that come my way. And on this first lap, just negotiating through the S's, running in close proximity with a lot of cars, I'm having to be on high alert for what's going on up ahead of me. And look, you can already see side by side heading into the Degnas. At this point I know danger lies ahead, so I'm just going to be very cautious, look down my inside as the driver behind Shah has a think about trying to capitalise on that action up ahead. Thankfully, he thinks better of it, just as I did, but then an opportunity does open up down into the hairpin. I'm able to hit the apex, get heavier on the brakes than I otherwise would to stop myself from running out wide, and I've managed to gain a position from Kaner Nazir, who is now behind me, and that puts me back up into 9th position, because I think I lost a place into T1. So already you can see then in this opening lap at Suzuka the importance of being alert and aware to what's going on around you, but also in just making sure that your priority on lap 1 is survival. You can lose an awful lot more than you can gain on lap 1 in races, and there are certain parts of the track that you just know from practice and qualifying are not good for side-by-side racing. The Degnas are definitely up there, and I actually would say at any time in the race it is worth being patient when you go through that set of corners. You've got, again, more to lose than you have to gain by trying to force a move through corners like that. Let's take a look at it on replay from the vantage point of Shah behind me. As I said, he's very sensible here. He could have looked to chuck it down the inside and force a move, but he thought better of it. But just a corner later, the gap did open up for me down the inside of Nazir, and that was enough to allow me to get through cleanly as he ran it out wide. We rejoined the live action then on lap 2, so the field is still pretty bunched together. It's opening up a little bit, but we're still within a second ahead of us and behind. And look up ahead, again underlining the importance of being alive to what's going on around you. The Audi there up ahead, getting up onto the curbing, was out of control and speared back across the track. And actually, Toby Gall up ahead of me there did very well to avoid a huge shunt, and I had to be on my toes as well. You saw I ran slightly wide into Degna 2 as I was just focused on what might come back onto the track if that Audi driver had rebounded back across and into my path. But we're closing in on goal again then as we get into Spoon here, and he's about to make another mistake, and that was riding the curbs too hard, particularly early on in this race. Speaking of curbs, it turns out that's what did for Jolie just a few corners earlier. That's why he was unsettled going through the Degnas. But here again is the example of goal just up ahead of me then through Spoon, just a little bit too aggressive on the curbs. And actually, this is the sort of thing you need to prioritize when you're in practice to make sure you understand how the car will react on the different curbs around a lap. This will vary depending on the class you're in and even the manufacturer you're racing with. But then it's my turn to make a mistake. I ran very slightly wide at the end of the S's up onto the grass, and really what I managed to do there was not panic. I took a judgment call to get off the gas, even though it cost me the position to the BMW behind me. I didn't fight that into the Degnas. I decided to live to fight another day. It wasn't worth me either trying to wrestle the car back on the grass or force a too wide situation into the Degnas. I accepted my mistake. I took the pain on that lap, but with a view to being able to get positions back and the fact that we were still early in the race. One car off to the left hand side there again, so we've made another position up there from a mistake into T1, but look at the battle raging up ahead between the BMW that overtook me on the previous lap, and then he is closing in on the Porsche driver up ahead of him. And once again then, we're going to hit upon another kind of mistake you can make, and that is just pushing too hard, particularly when you're in combat. It doesn't take much to run wheels out onto the grass, as I found just a lap before, and that's exactly what the BMW driver did there. And of course I had to be prepared for that, because he did end up stationary across the track. I didn't want to lose too much time, but I had to be cautious getting past him there and just make sure that I didn't end up being collected into a bigger accident. So you can see then, by deciding to just take a more cautious approach on the previous lap when the BMW driver passed me, within a couple of minutes I'm back ahead of him because of that mistake. So it wasn't really worth me fighting hammer and claw to keep hold of that position. In the end, it's worked out that I'm ahead of him on track anyway. Look up ahead though, here's another mistake from a driver, and that was really all about being too aggressive on brakes and downshifts, as we'll see in a moment on the replay. But he is just confirming the mistake then that the BMW driver made by running out too wide, and at that point he is a passenger. There's not really much he can do to save that mistake at that point. It was a high risk manoeuvre to be pushing that far wide on the track. But you can see here the Porsche driver's actually in a spin from the very entry of the corner. He's lost the back end of the car, and my assumption is that is because he's been too aggressive on the brakes and the downshifts. We resume the live action then on lap 5, and I'm up in 5th position, so I've made a huge number of places in the first part of this race. Unfortunately, although I did reel the driver in ahead by a good couple of seconds over the remainder of the race, I couldn't get close enough. I'd spent too much time in the first part of the race negotiating that mayhem on track that the best I could do was come home in 5th position. But when you think about how much carnage there was around on circuit, to come home with only 2 incident points and having gained 4 positions on track just by being a bit measured, particularly on lap 1, being very alert to what's going on around me, and when I made a small mistake, I made sure I didn't compound it into a much bigger error. Anyway, I hope you found this guide race video helpful, and if you want more tips and tricks on how to improve your racecraft, check out the video that's on screen now.